Now though for the heavy braking zone, around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly, Miller's still such up. He's not on second and change.
Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
Oh, they're going to toss it. They haven't got it.
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly, Miller's still such up. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it. Big Barry.
Good evening everybody and welcome along to PRL. It is round 3 in Tier 1 and we are at Portimao. Of course, Algarve's roller coaster, which is going to give us some tricky sectors confronting these drivers after last week's cruise at a wet Barcelona for the Tier 1 guys. My name is Darragh Thacker. Joining me in the commentary booth once again is the wonderful JGM, Joshua, Griffin, Meek and Josh. I mean, we're at Portugal. It's such a different challenge to Barcelona that we had last week, and it's going to be interesting to see if the pecking order changes this week.
Yep, certainly will be. Thank you for having me along, Darragh. It's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's such a different sort of technical layout. Yes, there's still elevation change here and there, but I feel like it's a lot more demanding of a circuit. There's a lot more quicker flowing corners, which again might play to some drivers' strengths, might play to other drivers' weaknesses. But I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm thinking about that long run down into turn 1. I'm expecting to see drivers make that the most opportunistic move there, heading down into turn 1, maybe even into turn 2. Or maybe doing a very late braking move all the way into Lagos. There's a lot of overtaking opportunities around this circuit. There's a lot of great racing moments which have happened here as well. So, I'm very excited to get into it. I've never commentated over Portimao before, which we was talking earlier. Darragh couldn't believe, but I, for one, very much looking forward to it. I'll be losing the never commentated Portimao title. But no, it's certainly a good one. I've watched many races around here, notably as well, to do with much Lagos, but I feel like it's going to be less transferable than it will be to the Formula 1 cars going around here.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a fan favourite in the MotoGP circuit, I think. We've had lots of testing occurs here for MotoGP, and it is a fantastic circuit. But in the F1s as well, of course, it's not on the calendar this year, nor last year, I think, nor the year before that either. It was just on for a couple of games, and Codemasters thought, we'll keep that in the game just to keep people interested for the coming years. But yeah, it's nice to have it. It's nice to have as many tracks as we can. And you're right, there are lots of overtaking opportunities. You think down at Turn 1 being the most obvious, but of course, it does tighten up in the mid-corner. Yeah. Turn 3, as you mentioned, again, really tightens, but you can try and send it to the inside, and then turn 5 at the end of the second DRS straight, the tight hairpin. But there are some really tricky corners. I mean, you think of the double right-hander going uphill at turn 7 and 8. I mean, you can really see some drivers lose the rear end there.
I cannot do that corner for the life of me. I'm all right at turn 7. I can keep it within the track limits, but as soon as it gets to turn 8, I'm lost. I am in a different world. I'm in a different racetrack. I can't keep it on the circuit there for the life of me. So I'm going to be very excited to see these drivers take on this, as you mentioned, roller coaster. It does very much feel like it. If you thought Suzuka was great, the circuit's, to me, it's another level.
Yeah, and just the elevation changes, really, I think, really sets this apart. I think early today as well, there were the announcements about the new Saudi Arabian track, which I think could contest Portimao for the most elevation change over a lap. But as it is, just so much up and down going over each of the little hills that dot around this circuit. But I mean, last week, of course, at Spain, we saw quite a good race, quite an exciting race, with the rain at the start of the race, drying at the end, and we saw some drivers really move forward in the championship with the standings really changing. With that sim racer, Scarenzi and Rabin all tied on 46 points at the moment.
It's ridiculous. So surely one of them's got to have a moment here. Surely. It's a completely different circuit. Maybe a potential for a little switch up towards the top. I'm not even thinking about the ones equal on points here. I'm thinking about maybe someone coming from maybe the depths of the table, getting themselves a win, elevating themselves to potentially push themselves further and further up in this championship, because we mention it almost on a weekly basis, don't we, Darragh? Consistency will be key for this championship, both in Tier 1, Tier 2, and of course for Tier 3 they do here.
Yeah, but I mean, 3 drivers tied at the top of the championship. I know we've only done 2 races, but it really does set up an exciting one. And even the likes of Paco in the Ferrari, currently in P5, he's had really quite good pace in the opening 2 rounds at Imola and Barcelona, but he hasn't really just been able to get that finishing position. Of course, big debate on the strategy. I mean, at the end of the race last week, he was leading the race, then he came into the pit lane for slicks, then thought, I'm not sure that's the right decision, went back out on an Inter, and then came back in for slicks. So don't count him out as well. Rapid Kitch is lurking around there as well. So we've got so many drivers who you definitely say are in the hunt for the championship. And I think it's these kind of races at Portimao and next week at Zandvoort, we might see a couple of drivers really try and kick on here.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, let's switch it over to the gameplay. I'm fairly confident we've had enough of me and Darragh rambling, because here we are at Portimao. It's not the sunniest of days. It seems to be an Iberian theme going at the minute, isn't it, Darragh? We didn't have great weather at Catalunya. Perhaps we could be in for a bit of wetness here as well.
I am still convinced that it's me. I mean, I did have a wet race yesterday at Hungary. It doesn't look too dry here either. So I think the rain is following me around. But we're going to see our first drivers getting out onto the track, of course, diving down towards turn 1. Dramatic elevation change, really, if you're standing on the apex of turn 1. But Banana in the Alpine, the first driver out, will hope that Alpine car isn't as slow as the real-life Alpine.
Yep, certainly so. It's got a little bit more paint on, but I feel like that'll fade away. Thankfully, in this case, all the drivers, equal performance cars, they don't need to worry about it. You see a little wave of a DRS flap saying hello to us. Hello, Banana. It's lovely to have you with us for this race. And certainly, I mean, you've mentioned the elevation change, but the thing which really stands out to me, it's not like a Bathurst, is it? It's not a slow rise up, quick rise down. Quick fall down, quick rise down? You can tell I'm tired, but no, it's one of those where it's constantly changing. It's constantly dipping up and down. It's not like a statutory climb upwards. It's such a diverse, a different circuit because of it, and I feel like it's certainly going to catch a couple drivers off guard just a slight bit, especially if you start to consider in The fact that they're going to be following a car through dirty air, there's blind apexes, the vision around here is not great necessarily anyway because of how low they are in the car. There's a lot which plays into it.
There is, and I also think that a lot of these corners, you can take many, many different lines through them to try and get the best lap time you possibly can. Banana through the final corner again, more than 90 degrees, flat out going right, goes downhill, and then you brake uphill before the well, you don't brake, but the track breaks uphill before you get to turn one, diving back again before the opening corner, flick the car in right, and it's difficult to really make sure that the rear end sticks. You can drift a little bit wide in the opening corner, maybe invalidate the lap time just as it's begun, but you rise back up through turn 4, tricky acceleration zone, but once you're on the power, you're just thinking about the braking zone for turn 5.
Absolutely, and you'll see him pinpointing it around the 75 metre board, making sure he gets nice and tight towards the apex, but avoiding the sausage curb on the inside, because that'll be a detriment to your lap, and you might as well count yourself out of qualifying if you end up hitting one of those bad boys. But he flicks it again through the double right-hander, kissing the apexes beautifully. That's the part I always struggle with, is trying to get the exit to make sure I stay within track limits. But so far, Banana's doing a fantastic job handling this Portimao roller coaster.
And this is the double apex right-hander as well at the top of the hill. He's a little bit wide there. But again, you can take many different lines. We see different drivers take different lines in the race particularly. And then it's rising back up the hill to this, what you'd really say is the penultimate corner. The left-hander that flows into this 180-degree right-hand. You can see the MotoGP long lap penalty loop on the outside. There is the rear end sliding just a little bit up the rear. But then it'll flow all the way through this final corner at turn 15, keeping it as tight as you can to the inside line. Banana drifting out a little bit wide, actually, as he runs up towards the timing beam. And a 17.6 is the benchmark. But we've got quite a few drivers out there to try and beat it right now.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the likes of F1 Nerd as well, what they were able to do over in Catalunya. It was absolutely fantastic. I, for one, am going to be keeping a special eye out for this driver. But we've got the likes of Scarenzi now also coming out on an outlap. There's a lot to be played for here, and there's a lot which can be lost, depending on if they do invalidate track limits, similar to what Devil's just done there.
Yeah, it's not really what you want to do. It's a difficult track on track limits. We're going to see a lot of penalties in the race, I do think. Rabin goes fastest. 16.8, the first driver into the minute 16s as that sim racer. Looks like he was trying to get out of the way there. But again, you've got to be careful around this track, because with the different lines that you can take, you may feel like you're off the racing line, but you might not be off everybody's racing line, so you've always got to be careful. MZ in the Aston Martin. Aston Martin could do with some more points, and he'll be hoping to get a good qualifying result here as he runs his way through turn 15. Will he keep it tight to the line? He's keeping it a little bit tighter than Banana, shaving off those extra hundredths and thousandths, but he goes up into P4. Slowest time so far as Nerd goes P4.
Yeah, it's certainly one of those tracks where you're looking to try and minimise the total distance on the circuit. You know, around other circuits, think about the Hungaroring, for example, it can be very beneficial to let the car naturally flow between corners. But around here, especially on that final corner, given how much of a run it is, you know, down into turn 1, in the race pace, yeah, it's fine, run out wide, make sure you carry with momentum. But because it's such a short approach to the line here, with the timing line being before the starting grid, if I'm not mistaken, you really want to just try and get that inside line. Very much like a Suzuka-esque sort of style, where you cut back in and you keep nice and tight to the right-hand side to really try and minimise every millimetre of this circuit, because that's where you're going to easily find, you know, half a tenth of a second, maybe even a tenth, depending on how well you're able to get the traction down. But we're going to see Deboya putting it up into P5 there with a 117.7, and again, we're starting to see this little midfield pack form again, and it's one of those brilliant little packs I love in sim racing, where you've got the action at the front, but that midfield is always alive and it's always kicking, just waiting for that opportunity to really give an opportunity to one of those drivers who's able to make the best out of their situation. Similar to what that sim racer's done. He's took another lap, 16.6. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, it's a good benchmark at the moment. That's in race. Of course, we were talking about him at Imola, having maybe not the best setup, rear end sliding around, but he had the car much more under control at Barcelona and very much seemingly here at Portimao as well. But just to touch again on your point about keeping the track as short as you possibly can, if anybody is doing time trial, the amount of time you can gain just by shortening your run to the line alone can be quite impressive. I mean, at Monza, coming out of Parabolica, just keeping it tight can gain you over a tenth of a second, where you don't really think you can gain too much time, but it's just minimising the meters. Scarenzi here, he sets the benchmark now, 16.5, and the times are just slowly coming down, and we might see a sub 16.5 very soon here, and AJ Mackey, don't count him out for it in the Williams.
Yes, absolutely not. I mean, you notice though, Scornsy taking that slightly tighter line over to the right-hand side, as that might have nipped him that extra attempt to grab him a potential pole position. We're going to see AJ Mackey taking a very similar line. He's going to approach up here, and it's a 17 flat. Again, a great lap time, putting himself up into P4. But you can expect this track evolution to keep getting better and better for all these drivers currently out. And also those who are waiting in the pits, just waiting for that opportunity, waiting for that perfect time to strike, such as Rapid Connor, who's just about, well, getting through turn 3 at the moment, on his first flying lap here.
He is, and we hope that Haas gets out of the way, which it does very nicely indeed. I think that may have been... well, it's either going to be Kitch or Scorenzi. But coming down into turn 5 now, it's so difficult on the braking zone. Of course, downhill braking. Oh, as that's a big slide in the mid-corner, trying to get down on the power, but maybe a little bit too eager. On the run up the hill towards turn 6, and then through this double right at 7 and 8. And Rapid Connor, I think he'll be looking to improve on a second run here, but definitely wanting to get a banker as he emerges over the crest and through the long left-hander at 9 before he runs into 10. But again, I think... Another point about Portimao is it's a track where you want to get a banker in, because like we've mentioned, it is easy to invalidate. If you invalidate that final run, but you're really depending on it, that's a massive slide, that's him off the track. And this will definitely not be a good banker, but you really want a good time to build on. Otherwise, you're going to be looking for too much and maybe push too hard on the closing stages.
Yeah, I feel like from the bit of racing I have seen around here during my time, overdriving is certainly a key factor. And demanding a little bit too much from a car. It's going through a lot of stress, a lot of strain, going up and down those crevices. Just making sure it can really try and find itself a little bit of balance and a perfect window where the car feels good and loading off the brakes, letting that front rise up once again when trying to get on the power, making sure you're able to get the traction. There's a lot which goes into a great lap around Portimao, and a lot of it is just down to having the patience just to make sure you're able to get the car pointing in a straight line before you get back on the power. And also being just aware of how the geometry of the circuit really affects the car and its handling, the cambers, the climbs, the dips. There's a lot which goes into it, and certainly one of the drivers which has been able to find that out is Eric, who jumped himself up into P2 during our points.
Yeah, very good lap time there from Eric. He'll be looking to build on that again. Imola, he got blocked, didn't he? Right at the end of the qualifying session, which meant he had to start further back. So he's been kind of playing a little bit of catch-up ever since then, but showing his pure pace here. Only 400ths off Scorenzi, but F1 Nerd flowing now through turns 1 and 2 and into 3. Of course, triple right to start the lap. But we're getting to this stage now. More than halfway through the qualifying session, drivers maybe have got this lap and one more, but it's going to start to get a little bit nervy for the guys, the likes of Crew Steamers, the likes of Oliver James, Rapid Kitch, who haven't really got the lap times they've wanted yet, and Rapid Connor as well, because they need to get them in soon.
Yes, absolutely. Time is ticking, it's of the essence. It's something we all wish we could have more of when trying to do good qualifying runs, but unfortunately that's not the way the cookie crumbles. But certainly F1 Nerd is looking to get an improvement on this lap time. The way he's been absolutely manhandling this poor little Ferrari through the second sector is absolutely phenomenal. And again, you see a different variation of lines there, heading in between 12, 13 throughout the entire grid. I mean, it's fantastic. Just the nature and the flowing capability of this circuit. I was struggling to find the word there, but I suppose capabilities will do, because it is just a brilliant circuit to be able to put a lap around, and it's really rewarding once you get it right, as we see F1 Nerd improve there by a tenth exactly to hop himself up into P10, but there's some extra quick drivers behind him who are looking to make an improvement too.
Yeah, a few drivers as well, on laps and on out laps, as we're kind of getting that blend between people on runs who are who have different run plans, of course, to everyone else. Kitch not seemingly on a lap here. Middlesex Split's going to be, tell us, 4.5 seconds off of his current time, so he's not going to be improving on his P6 just yet, but Debo across the line, but I think he just about invalidated his lap before, might be going again. Banana, his teammates, just starting a flying lap as well, as we might have Tintoretto or AJ Mackey. It's Tintoretto, actually, not AJ Mackey, because Tintoretto leapfrogs his teammate, 5th driver, into the 1 minute 16s, and he puts himself onto the 3rd row here. Williams, they're looking strong at the moment.
They certainly are, but they're going to have to keep an eye on the likes of that Sim Racer here, who's looking to find a bit of improvement. But you just saw that little snap of oversteer at the rear, not necessarily wanting the car to go in, going back down the hill, causes that Sim Racer just to run it out slightly wide, pick up an invalidation, and then that'll be this lap ruined for him. So he's going to have to dive back into the pits, put a new fresh set of soft tyres on, and give it another go. Let's see how Scorenzi's going to fare and whether he's going to be able to improve on his lap time, and how much by if he does.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be slightly nervy for the drivers if Scorenzi can just put a little bit more distance between himself and the rest of the pack. But Purple First Sector showing that he has got a little bit more pace to unlock in that Haas car. 3, 7 and 8 here. Tricky on the power as we've mentioned, but he's done that with absolute ease. Made it look very, very easy before the run into turn 9 here. The middle sector split is going to tell us quite a lot of information, you'd have thought, as he runs his way. Double apex corner, very, very nicely put onto the second apex, and he's nearly a tenth and a half up already.
This is frighteningly good. You can see how he's sort of dissecting the lines, making sure he doesn't run it too wide. He didn't want to swing it back over to the right to open up the left-hander, going all the way down into turn 12. He kept it to that left-hand side. Let's see how he's going to be able to round it out. Head in through Gape here. Turn 15. You can see he's keeping it nice and close to the inside. And then he just lets the car naturally open itself up. And it's a big improvement there. An attempt to hop it up into the 16.4s. Darragh, something tells me this isn't going to be the end of it, and it's going to keep getting quicker and quicker.
No, I totally agree. I wonder if he maybe lost a little bit of time there coming through turn 12 Scorenzi, because of course he was a tenth and a half up and he lost a few hundredths in that final sector. So there's still very clearly time he can find on another run, should he have the tyres and the desire to go for another one. But here we go, Chris Steamers again. He's not looking like he's improving at the moment, and that red light flashing at the back shows you that I don't think he's going to be setting a quicker lap time here, as the people on laps start to dry up for the moment, because I think everyone's starting to prepare themselves for that final flying run. Rabin on an out lap, so he's maybe slightly differing the run plan along with Devil in the Ferrari. But Scorenzi does look scary, and if he can get another run in, as we've mentioned, he could go even quicker here.
Absolutely. I'm a bit worried, but Eric is trying to ease my worries here about domination. As he pops up here into turn 10, you'll see once again he's going to take that slightly left-handed line to make sure he's going to get the better run here, so he straightens himself up as soon as possible for a breaking point, heading into 13. Brilliant stuff there. He seemed to connect with the apex a lot better than Scorenzi, so we could potentially see Eric jumping up to the top of the timing sheet, but it all comes down to how well is he able to get the traction down heading into 15, and if he's going to lose the rear or not, because it can be so tricky in these cars to kind of hold that little bit just together coming out of 15, and he has done. He's done so beautifully. 16-3, but with 3 minutes 55 left on the session, he's cutting it very fine to get another lap in.
Yeah, if you think about it now, another minute or so makes it 2:45, then about a minute in the pit lane, 1:45. He is cutting it fine to try and get back out in this session. Finbop can improve to the 5th row, P10 with a 17 flat, but he's so close to Rapid Kitch, 5,000th back on the man in P9. Rabin is just about to start his flying lap, but we might have some other runs as well. But he's really the first of the final flying runs, you'd have said here, because, of course, people in the pit lane right now, they're going to be coming out shortly to set their times, but Rabin will have to see if he can put himself into the top 5.
Absolutely, but he's got a clean track to do so, so you would expect him to really try and push the absolute limits of what the Alfa Romeo is capable of and what he's capable of in that car, as we see. Purple First Sector up by a tenth and a half. Brilliant stuff so far from Rabin. We know he's got that one lap pace in him. We know we've seen it around the likes of Imola, around Catalunya. We know he can really pull a lap out the bag when he needs to do it, and this is surely going to be one of those moments. The rest of the drivers now slowly rolling out the pit lane, getting ready to start their laps. He's still got potential here if he wants to abandon this lap, chuck it back on recharge, and give it another go, but he doesn't look like he wants to. He seems very happy with the progress he's making so far.
He is 3.5 tenths up now, really eating some time out of his banker lap time run. And as it stands right now, he'd be looking at P3 minimum. Let's see how much time he can squeeze out of this final sector as well, running it through turn 14. That's a rear slide. That is not going to be ideal. That's going to affect his run all the way to the line, losing some vital miles per hour all the way as he comes around the final corner up towards the line. Manana's not going to set another lap time, and Rabin, he goes P4, same lap time as that Sim Racer. And it's just that mistake in the final corner that has cost him P3 at least here. I don't think he would have lost 2/10 from it, but it's going to be gutting for him that he's level. His time is level with that sim racer. He barely had to do anything else to get himself up into P3, but as it is, oh so close.
No, honestly, I reckon there's probably about 2 attempts in that. If you're correcting for the slide and then taking into account how much time he would have lost down the straight from that slide as well, I reckon that could have been a potential pole position lap. Honestly, you know, it would have been very close, but certainly an ample amount of time was lost for us. See Oliver James coming up towards the line now. He managed to find an 8/10 improvement, but it's only good enough for P14. Oh, it's unfortunate for Oliver, but he needed that soft tyre run in here, didn't he? He went out on the mediums, got acclimated to the track, understood it a little bit more, and then decided to go for a push lap, which we've seen work before.
Yeah, let's see. MZ up to P12 then, 17.4. Good time for him. He's going to pull out of the way of the Ferrari just in behind him, looking for a sneaky toe down towards the opening corner. But we really are ticking down now to the final minute of this qualifying session. Crew Steamers into the final sector now. The Alfa Romeo driver looking for some time, quite a ways off the back of the pack, and definitely looking to improve on P16 as they come around the penultimate corner and then try and get the power down as quickly and as safely as they can without lighting up the rear end. But through the final corner, diving down the hill, rising back up to the line. Crew Steamers, can they find any positions? Not quite, but they find nearly half a second, showing that they did have more time in the car. But the likes of Eric Scarenzi, that sim racer, they are leaving it very late, but I think they're all just about going to make the line here.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a close one, but we know what these guys are capable of. We know they're great at time management. We see it time and time again. They understand how long they have left in a session. They know how long it takes for them to prepare their laps, and they've certainly almost hit the nail on the head here with Eric and Sim Racer with 6 seconds to go. Just about start their lap, but Scarenzi slightly further up the road. He's looking strong so far throughout that sector 1, but how well is he going to manage this double right-handers of 7 and 8? It'll be very, very close depending on how well the rest of the drivers are going to be able to do it. You're looking realistically at maybe a 10th in it for pole position. If that, we might see a smaller margin, but so far Scarenzi's looking very solid. He's keeping that car well in control. Very little wheel spin happening throughout the entirety of this lap.
Yeah, and I've seen Eric has made a mistake at turn 1 as well, so he won't be improving on his time. So Scarenzi, it's just really him versus that sim racer to beat Eric's time. AJ Mackey jumps up to P3. 3 drivers separated by 2 thousandths from 3rd to 5th. Incredible stuff. But Scarenzi out of the final acceleration zone through turn 15. Can he snatch pole at the death? One of the final 2 drivers really to set his flying, or one of the final few to set his lap time. Can he do it? You bet he can. 16.1. What a lap time there. 2/10 of a second he's taken out of Eric's provisional pole time, as that sim racer now will come around the penultimate corner. Got a couple more drivers between himself and the line, but I don't know if they're setting times. Oh, that sim racer very close to invalidating the lap as the 2 drivers in front peel into the pit lane. But that sim racer, he's so close to P3. Can he at least get up into the top 3? Yes, he can. Just about a 10th and a half behind Eric as Connor comes into the pit lane. But Scarenzi pulls it out when it mattered. Eric is going to be ruining that mistake. Yeah. But look at the gaps behind. It's so tight. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. We quite often end up getting this front field sorted out. And then that mid-pack, it changes every week. The drivers who seem dominant around Imola weren't dominant in Catalunya. The drivers around Catalunya who were dominant aren't as dominant here. There's a lot which has gone into this, and you can tell the different drivers and the different preparation techniques, how they feel to the track, how acclimated they are. It all works itself into this beautiful display of talent and ability for all these drivers. And it's most evidently available here for us in the qualifying sessions, as we see Scarenzi coming out on top. The American with a 1:16.1, a brilliant lap time to separate himself from Eric, who, as you mentioned, had that mistake down in turn 1. It's a very easy thing to do, but again, just caught up slightly on the brakes and ended up paying the ultimate price of it by having to abandon your lap. It's a tough pill to swallow, but we know what his race pace is like. Expect him to have a good run down into turn 1, along with that sim racer, AJ Mackey, Rabban, Rapid Connor, Rapid Kitch, Banana, Basil, Tintoretto, Finbop, Devil, MZ Plays, D Bauer, F1 Nerd, Oliver James, PRL Crew Steamers, and Rapid Mini as well, who didn't set a qualifying time. But I do believe that might be for a qualifying ban.
Yeah, we'll have to see what he can do right from the back of the field. I think if there are a couple of incidents in the early couple of laps, then he might be able to pick his way through the order. But we're going to have to see as we get in towards this race. Of course, we'll have to see what the weather conditions are telling us. And they're telling us it's a beautiful sunny day. It's much nicer than it was for qualifying, and I think we might just about get a dry race here.
I might have to get my sunscreen out at this rate, to be honest with you, Darragh. It'd be a nice change from Catalonia, but no, you mentioned run down to turn 1. It can be so, treacherous for drivers, especially those starting on that right-hand side of the grid. They're going to have a lot to worry about if drivers decide to try and swing it around the outside. They might end up getting pinched into the apex, could cause collisions, could cause issues throughout for the first 3 corners, technically, I suppose, but that overall leading into the braking zone of Lagos, it's going to be so challenging for these drivers to kind of tackle it and understand what the other drivers on the grid are going to do. But we know the competent abilities of the drivers here. They all like clean racing, they all want to keep it fair, they all want to keep it square. So you can expect maybe a little bit too much room to be given going down into turn 1. But if anyone's brave enough to try and capitalise on it, they can definitely find themselves 1 or 2 positions.
Yeah, and it is tricky. I mean, we did mention it, didn't we? That turn 1, the apex really does pinch up on you as you run your way through. So, because it's a very wide track going down the hill into turn 1, you can really fit maybe even 4 cars wide, just purely side by side. As we're going to get onto the formation lap now. But once you get into the apex of turn 1, as Rabin's got to drive through for a drop. How's he jump started?
Has he jump started a formation lap? That's impressive. Not in the right way, but it's still very impressive. I didn't know I didn't know that was a feature, to be honest with you.
I feel like that's more of a game glitch, if I'm honest, because I have never seen that before.
Darragh, it's a game feature, okay?
Is it?
Yeah, 100%. This game has many features.
Right. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Teleporting cars, you name it. But there's AWS's possible race strategies. One stop, pit in on lap 14 to 16 to go chuck it over to a pair of mediums. Or you could pit in a little bit earlier and decide to chuck a pair of softs on. But depends what the drivers have gone for. And we can see an array of strategies here from the mediums, softs, and even the couple hard runners being F7 Arbanana and D Bauer. Both the Alpines opting for a similar strategy. If there's a safety car towards the start, they might find themselves in a bit of peril. But again, there's enough run-out space here to maybe consider that a safety car might be a bit unlikely.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I've just seen Rabin has put into the Tier 1 chat on the Discord that he said, "What did I do?" So he's clearly as confused as everyone else is of why he's got to drive through here. But yeah, impressive stuff, if I'm honest. And that's really going to hurt him if he has to serve it here from P5 on that soft compounded tyre. Connor and Kitch behind him. It's like Christmas has come early for them. I don't know whether Rabin can actually could jump the start. Not suggesting that he does, but I wonder if he jumped the start, if it would give him another drive through, or if it would make no difference at all. Because I've never seen this before. But Scarenzi's not going to be thinking about that. He's just going to be thinking about the run towards turn 1 and holding off Eric and that sim racer.
Look at how long it is. You got to think as well, we're slightly more elevated than the traditional cockpit camera, which some of these drivers will use. You can't even see the apex turn 1. You've got to eyeball it. And that's the scariest part about this circuit to me. But we're going to see the rest of the drivers filing up. We see the heat rays coming down, indicating it's a nice, hot day. Surely that's going to play a little bit of an effect on those soft compound tyres, making them degrade a little bit quicker. But only time will tell.
Yeah, and here we go then. The final car, Rapid Mini, just lining up onto the grid as we have 33 laps of this Portimao circuit for you to come. Rabin, there is something going very wrong with his car as he is going to put himself somewhere, and I think we are going to be having a restart because AJ Mackie, I believe, was the lobby host.
Does this mean we can count Rabin as taking the lead? I'm just asking. I'm not stat searching, but Rabin taking the lead from P5 to P1 is mighty impressive. But yes, we will get a lobby restart. So let's take you back over. Oh dear. Well, apparently the race is starting, but it's not. It doesn't mean anything. Let's chuck it back over to the calendar. So we can talk a little bit about what lies in store for the future of this race.
Yes, we can. As all those cars got off. We are restarting. Looking forward in the calendar. Next week, of course, we've got Zandvoort. Zandvoort, probably a similar kind of circuit to Portimao. Yeah. You'd say 1 or 2 overtaking opportunities, but again, it can be tricky. Lots of lines through the middle sector. But then we go to a string of races: Austria, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia. I mean, these could be overtaking like festivals, really.
You know, thinking about it now, Zandvoort and Portimao, they're not too different. Apart from the fact, I would say, Portimao's probably got slightly quicker corners, require a little bit more downforce. I'm starting to think from an engineering perspective here, how easy would it be to shift driving styles from the Portimao setup to the Zandvoort setup? I don't feel like it'll be too difficult, but then, as you mentioned, we're jumping off again to a completely different sort of circuit in Austria, where again, yes, we're off fast-flowing corners, but the elevation change is really only rising up into turn 3, and then you're kind of feeding yourself all the way back down to turn 12? Can I count?
Yeah, I believe so. Well, at Zandvoort, right? Down to the stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I believe that's turn
okay.
12.
I can count. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thunk it? Anyway, enough of the yapping, right? Because Austria, Jeddah, I mean, even Abu Dhabi, brilliant circuits to try and get overtaken done. Certainly going to be in for an action-packed race there. Portimao, I can't speak on it from experience, but from what we saw in the qualifying, it's looking very promising. Different lines, different techniques for the drivers. Certainly going to be looking forward to that one. But then Zandvoort, it's kind of a thorn here, isn't it, with Qatar for creating those overtaking opportunities. Almost guaranteed a close race because of how tight a lot of the circuit is, but overtaking opportunities there, the drivers are going to have to be brave, they're going to have to be bold to try and make a move.
You really are. And that's really going to be swapping around by the time we rock up to Austria, because, of course, Austria, shortest track in terms of lap time on the F1 calendar at all, let alone this 10 race calendar.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really interesting just to see how the drivers adapt. Of course, DRS trains are very likely to occur. We're likely to see lots of overtaking, lots of swapping of positions, working together with the DRS down to 1, 3, and up down to 1, up to 3, and down to 4. But it's just going to be interesting, I think, just to see the transition from Austria, or to the Netherlands to Austria, and then, of course, moving along to Abu Dhabi, where Abu Dhabi, I do think it's an underrated circuit in terms of the fact that you've got that relatively tight and twisty final sector where you've got to really, that's where you can find your lap time in qualifying particularly, but around the rest of the lap, there are overtaking opportunities. Turn 5, you can stick a nose down the inside and make the move stick. Turn 6, of course, with the DRS. Then, of course, down at turn 9, you can use that DRS. So I think it's going to be really interesting just to see how the drivers move from this kind of heavily thought-about racecraft part of the season, Spain, Portugal, Netherlands, to the really all-out melee that we might see at Austria, Abu Dhabi and Saudi.
Yeah, absolutely. But, again, it might not be an all-out melee. We've got teams here for a reason, right? The drivers, they can choose to work together, individual championship mainly, but if they do want to decide to work together, how much opportunity is there for drivers who qualify next to each other to be able to work, use each other for slipstream, catch up to other drivers, try and pull away from the pack? You know, you're thinking about Austria, you've got turn 1 to turn 3, great opportunity. Turn 3 to turn 4, another great opportunity to switch around with DRS. I mean, even, you know, heading down into turn 1 with DRS straight there at Austria, there is a chance, it might not be, you know, the most efficient, but if a driver ends up getting a bad run, opportunity there. Abu Dhabi, again, there's just so much potential heading to those two circuits. Less so in Jeddah, but for those two circuits, I feel like it could play a key part in just trying to control a race from a team standpoint, that they would want to try and qualify close to one another to be able to work off each other and get themselves into the best position possible.
Exactly. I mean, with different tracks come different challenges, obviously, and with the F1 game, which is different to other sim racing games in terms of the fact that the handling of the car, of course, can change on a dime, really, with any kind of slight change. I mean, we see lots of issues with the game as well, not naming anything, but we've just seen one. And
features.
Game features, yeah, there you
features.
go. But you just got to adapt, and that's something that you don't often see in other sim racing events or platforms. So I think it's a difficult challenge, especially for these drivers who were ready. They were ready for the race. They were in the zone, ready to get going, and then you've got to wait another 5 minutes have a lobby restart to fix what had gone wrong, and then you've got to be back in it once again. So it leads to a little bit of confusion, and also on the strategy, you kind of know what everyone else is doing. So is that layer of thinking time, but you can start to overthink things during this kind of 5-10 minutes period.
Absolutely. Overthinking, if you want to try and change your strategy depending on what you've gone on, depending on if the rules allow it as well. I know a couple of leagues don't allow it once you've stuck to your tyre at the start. If there's a lobby restart, you gotta stick to it. But again, there's a little bit of time to think. But on the same note, the lobby host doesn't have that time to think. They're sitting there manually doing the grid, thinking, right, okay, I'm quicker than this one. How's this person qualified ahead of me, right? But it could just play a doubt start to creep in. And that was one of the features that I tended to do. When I started doubting myself going into sim racing events, I always ended up coming worse off from it. Like in a mental capacity, and also in the race, I wasn't able to carry that confidence over. So I feel like, if you qualified up towards the front end of the field, you might not always be there, but you've managed to get yourself top 10, top 8, for example. And you give them this time period, it gives you way too much time to think about, okay, how did I do that lap? What do I need to do? Where did I lose time? And then again, it just causes that repeating horrible cycle for these drivers to think about, just trying to maximize the amount of time, they're trying to gain out of circuit. And for me, it wasn't healthy. It didn't work. It wasn't helpful. I wasn't a fan of it. But again, there's so many opportunities for these drivers to sit, overcomplicate things, overthink things, and then find themselves in an unfortunate position where they're not in the right headspace to go down into a turn one, especially like Portimao as well, where it can be very technical, can be very challenging, will have a lot of pressure from drivers behind. It all kind of adds up, doesn't it, Darragh?
Yeah, you've got to be focused right the way through. You can't really let yourself nag away at yourself, really, for little mistakes. You just got to keep going, got to keep focused, got to keep pounding in the laps, just making sure that you keep it on track, keep it within the white lines, and that, you're just preserving your tyres and your ERS well, because of course if you're just not really managing the race in a way that's going to help you move forward, it can just start to nag away at you if you're really pushing to catch up to cars that may be a little bit too quick for you, and you deplete your battery, and then they start to get away because you can't really keep up anymore. It just plays on your mind because you can't keep up with these guys, you're just falling further and further back. But you just got to be aware, just got to manage everything, know that anything can happen on the turn of a dime. I mean, a safety car could come out at any split second if someone has a crash. You've always got to be ready and thinking about what you could do on the strategy if a safety car comes out, especially if you've got 1 or 2 seconds to make a decision, depending on when the safety car is called. But these are all different challenges, of course, these drivers are going to have to face. Just depends to see whether we're going to see anything like that this evening. Late safety car calls, for example, being one of those. But with Portugal being a track like it is, we're unlikely to see anybody, or it's going to be more unlikely to see a driver get caught by the safety car just after passing the pit lane when it's called out. I mean, you get it more often at tracks like France, where there's a longer gap between, on track I should say, between the pit entry and the pit exit, but not here at Portimao, so they won't have to worry about that. But there are other tracks, places like Britain, where that is a problem. You think if you've got to go through the rail chicane, and if something like that happens in the final round of the season, it could be catastrophic for your championship.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, we say consistency is a key feature, but it also works the other way, where sometimes you might just calculate stuff slightly incorrect here and there, and then it starts to fall away, and then one bad result leads to another one, and it chains on. Momentum is a fantastic thing when it ends up swinging for you, but when it starts to swing against you, it can feel like you're running into a brick wall sometimes. So for these drivers, it's about just trying to get themselves in that headspace, that level headspace, where they're completely at bliss. They understand, right? Yes, we've had this break. I've got to get back into the zone. I can't let it affect my mental. Because, as mentioned, like you said, if it ends up having, an issue, ends up being caught out by a safety car, something which isn't even their fault, it can really start to weigh on their mind.
Yeah, it can do, and you just got to keep yourself grounded all the way through the season. But here we are, we're back, and the new lobby looks as sunny as it once did before some game features put a stop to that lobby. But hopefully this one will get us going.
I'm just saying, Darragh, if we have another game feature and it ends up wet, I'm fully committed to understanding your curse. I'll understand it. But I do believe we've got 5 red lights. Darragh.
We do. Straight in. No formation lap for these guys. And we are going to go straight away. And the lights are gone. And we are away at Portimao. Down towards the opening corner. Scarenzi holds the lead over Eric. Eric looking for the line. But he's not going to be close enough to try and inside move into turn 1. In the background, though, 2, maybe 3 wide. A little bit of lagging as well. I think that's Finbop in the Mercedes going through some drivers. There's some crashes. There's some front wings gone, including Banana, who we were looking at here. And that's going to be Mackie spinning around. So not the ideal start for him. But Scarenzi's away. Eric and that Sim Racer follow in tow. But there is absolute chaos behind.
Absolutely. It's a bit of carnage back there, trying to get through turn 1. We mentioned how difficult it can be, but let's real quickly just flash back up the tyres. It does look like everyone stayed on their starting compound they were looking to start with, but Rabin already getting that hop up into P4, Rapid Connor in P6 on the medium tyre. He's got a little bit of work to do, but I'm sure the Rapid clan are going to be somewhat communicating, trying to understand how each other are racing, trying to make the best out this situation. Because when you've got drivers like Scarenzi already pulling a 7/10 gap to Eric, who's got 5/10 gap to Sim Racer, you're really just hoping that the new DRS rule's implemented and it's already going to be open by the time you go down that straight again. Oh, virtual safety car. There we go.
Yeah, I think that's Rapid Mini, who, of course, started right at the back of the field, and he's still right at the back of the field, spinning around. Maybe a little bit of contact there and some front wing missing on that Alpha Tauri car, but Scarenzi, ideal launch, ideal start, no one challenging him into the opening corner, and he could go about his business taking the racing line. But with Eric and that Sim Racer on the mediums being trailed by Rabin and Kitch on the softs, could we see those 2 drivers in 4th and 5th maybe try and ruffle the feathers of the top 3 while they have the opportunity? Finbop, that's an unforced error, speeding in the pit lane under the VSC, and that's going to come back to haunt him in his next pit stop. But I mean, Scarenzi and Eric here, they're really going to be looking to use that Sim Racer as a bit of a block for the soft runners behind.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that Sim Racer's got a difficult decision to make. Does he want to let the likes of Rabin and Rapid Kitch pass so they can try and attack Eric, hold him up, try and attack Scarenzi, hold him up? Or do they just sit back and defend from the soft tyres? For me personally, I would be willing to let the soft tyres go past, understanding that later on in the stint, the tyres will come back to me. I'll be all over the back of them. I could potentially try and get the overcut on them. But again, it's one of those, you know, you take some, you give some. And certainly someone who ended up taking a little bit more time at the interval there was Eric under this VSC safety car restart. But you see that Sim Racer already struggling with trying to keep those tyres up to temp, having that little slide coming back down the hill. I don't feel like it's the first or the last time we've seen that one today.
Yeah, and it's maybe it's Rabin's birthday today, because that is an absolute gift of a position through the middle sector. But he will now be charging after Eric and Scarenzi on that soft tyre, trying to make the best use of that soft compounded tyre. DRS, of course, enabled as we start lap 3, and Eric is so close on the back here of Scarenzi, maybe either with a straight line setup compared to compromising his lines in the corners, or maybe using a bit of ERS, but that battery looks relatively healthy, so it might just be a very good car in a straight line as they run up through turn 4. He's going to have the DRS towards turn 5, but he's not going to be close enough to send the lunge here on lap 3. But he's got to be aware of Rabin in behind, because he will be closing on that soft.
Yeah, you can really see just how much more bite Rabin has heading into the corners. You'll be able to see it on board better heading into turn 7 here. You can just see that car is a lot more willing to stick. You see that medium tyre in front on the AlphaTauri just running it a little bit deeper into the corner, a little bit deeper on exit. This is the opportunity Rabin has here, where he's on the soft compounded tyre, to really try and maximise how much he's able to get out of using alternate racing lines, keeping out the dirty air of the cars in front. He's surely going to have to start contemplating, maybe sort of switching up what lines he's taking to make sure he doesn't run too close behind to Eric, because despite these cars being slightly better with dirty air, they're still not perfect by any means.
Absolutely true there. I mean, lap 3 of 33... Rabin is close, isn't he? I mean, we've got a train from 1st down to 7th. F1 nerd very much disconnected from this front train, and Oliver James having to defend himself, but from the likes of D. Bowyer on the hard behind. But down in towards turn 1, Eric with the DRS looking for the move, but I think he just turned it off, knowing that he wouldn't be far enough alongside to really make that one stick, as Oliver James is going to get absolutely swamped here. 2 have gone through, and MZ got close, but not quite close enough to make the move as well. But D. Bowyer on the hard, it's going to be interesting to follow his progress, because he is he's the only driver who isn't a pit stop down on the hard compounded tyre, as Oliver James looks for the move back on Crew Steamers, who has a moment mid-corner. That checks up Oliver, and here comes MZ into turn 5.
Very aggressive defense there from Oliver, but MZ getting that inside line, locking him a break, making sure he's ended up to get towards the apex as effectively as possible, but Oliver just sweeps it around the outside. He's got a little bit better traction. He didn't have the, discouraged run out the corner from locking up, trying to meet the apex. He was more than happy to take a wide line and try and carry a bit more speed through, so that's going to keep him up into P11, but it certainly feels like when will that opportunity strike for MZ rather than if it will, because we know what MZ is capable of. We know he's got a little bit of pace, as I believe... Oh dear, that's not the way we want this session to go, is it, with a disconnect? So that's going to see Rabin hopping up into P2, and I do believe he might even be able to still get the DRS from Scornsey in front. I mean, you mentioned it might be Rabin's birthday. I'm starting to think it might be as well.
Yeah, because that is 2 free positions for him, completely free of charge. I mean, he's got coupons for them to get through up into P2 now. That sim race is going to get through an Eric as well. Nothing Eric can do, obviously, as his race. It is not going ideally well after a fantastic qualifying on the front row of the grid. Here comes MZ Plays. Him and Oliver have been fighting all lap long, and Oliver going onto the runoff at turn 1 as he comes through turn 2. MZ has the position, and he will try and pull away and back up towards Bowyer and Crew Steamers, who have got a little away a little bit from this train. Eric has joined back, but I fear he may slip all the way down to 7th before he can get back in his car as Crew Steamers up the inside of Bowyer. He's going to try and make the move for P9, but it is very close on the traction.
Absolutely, and you got to start thinking now. Crew has got to close that door, but he's closed it a little bit too early. Both of them around D. Bowyer, the leading hard compound tyre runner, in a position he definitely doesn't want to be in. That is very, very unfortunate. I'm sure the stewards will have a little bit of a look at that one to find out who's at fault, but my word, once you have a soft compound and a hard compound race tyre racing each other for the same bit of tarmac, it's always destined to end in a surprise.
Yeah, it is. That's not ideal for either of them. I mentioned it at the start of the show as well. The fact that turn 7 and 8 is tricky. You may not be able to make a move, but you can if you're brave. And D. Bowyer, he stuck his nose in, but Crew didn't really want to give him too much space. And they did come together. But look at Rabin here, right on the back of Scorenzi. Eric back in his car, making moves on Basil in behind as well. But he's got to try and catch back up to the DRS. But Basil's coming back at him through turn 2 and into turn 3. And these two now having their own little battle as they run up the hill through turn 4. It's so close on the exit, and Eric shoveled wide a little bit, but he's got the DRS towards turn 5, and he's going to have the outside line for this hairpin. Yeah,
and you'll be hoping that he'll just be able to swing it around the outside, very similar to what Oliver was able to do on MZ before. And you can see Eric there jumping past Basil. He'll be looking to keep his head down and close back up to the field, because he's currently 1.9 off the back of Rapid Connor, but he knows deep down in his heart that's not where he's supposed to be. He should be up fighting for that lead of the race with Rabin, Scornsey, that sim racer as well, all of which are now within a second of one another. And while we've got all this battling heading all the way through the midfield, Rapid Kitch, he's a second back now, but he's still slowly reeling him in, bit by bit, quarter after quarter on that soft compound tyre. He's in a really good position.
Yes, we'll have to see how this all unfolds. Of course, early stages in this race at Portimao. I mean, the two Williams, we mentioned them earlier, they had a really good qualifying, but not the best start to the race. 14th and 15th having their own little battle at the moment. That sim racer, though, having a lot of pace now on that medium time. Maybe the softs starting to lose their edge just a touch, because the Mercedes driver up into P2, trying to make his way to the front of the field as Basil still defending from Eric here. They're losing time on the back of Kitch. That gap now is 2 seconds to the top 5 for these two. But look at the exit for Eric, trying to get the best run he can towards turn 5. He's going to have the inside line this time compared to the outside line he had last lap. Down into turn 5, he's got the inside line, controlled the line, got the move, and Eric now really can try and gain ground on Kitch here.
Brilliant stuff, but I wouldn't write Basil out of it just yet in this battle. I mean, it certainly seemed like so far he's had Eric's number heading down that straight. I'm not sure whether that's setup orientated, whether he's gone for a slightly less draggy setup to just try and get overtakes sorted. It could be a very strategic way to go about it, because we know when it comes to this middle sector, it can be very awkward to follow cars regardless of what sort of downforce you're running. Tyres at the end of the day, they're not really the biggest fan of going over all these hills, bumps, getting the loads pushed on them even more than they would normally. So perhaps maybe going for a slightly less draggy setup with lower wings, I would say closing my brake ducts, but it's kind of hard to close a brake duct on a open wheel car. But, you get my point. It would certainly help just being able to harness a little bit more power from a slipstream, making the DRS slightly more efficient as well. That's something that we surely see with the likes of that sim racer at Rabin, and also Eric when he was up here as well, because he wasn't closing in near as much as he would have wanted to.
Yeah, he's not really doing exactly what he would want at this stage of the race, but there's still a long time for this to develop, really. I mean, strategies are going to be interesting. I think a soft medium might be very brave here at Portimao. Of course, tyre wear can be quite high, lots of long corners, acceleration zones as well. So a soft medium would be brave, soft hard, likely. Otherwise, they're going for a two-stop here. Don't rule that out. Maybe a pit stop in the coming couple of laps. But for Scarenzi and that sim racer, you think they're going to... Oh, there is a spin. Yeah, you're right. Rapid Connor spinning around all of his own volition there. And it's a mistake that we see often up at the top of the hill because it's so difficult on the traction. The hill doesn't really help you put your foot down onto the accelerator, and he slipped back to P7 now. Yeah,
but it can also quite often lead to a mistake heading down into this section here, dipping back from the top of the hill all the way down. If you end up spinning, you cut your tyres a little bit, it's going to be even harder to get on the traction coming out of there, but so far Rapid Connor has been able to control his pace, control those tyres a little bit better, and he's been able to get back underway in this race, which is fantastic to see. But when you have Mizzy once again spinning up at the top of the hill, it's a tough one, isn't it? It's a very challenging circuit for a lot of these drivers, for many drivers in general, to be honest with you, regardless of what formula car, what open wheel, what closed wheel, what GT car. It's certainly a circuit a lot of people like to drive, but not necessarily race, if you get what I mean there.
Oh no, I totally, I agree with that one. I think it's not necessarily a driver's favourite in terms of a racing quality, as we see Basil now down the inside of Rapid Kitch, who may lose 2 positions. Indeed he has, on the back of Eric and Basil. Those softs now really losing their edge. And we have seen Rabin come into the pit lane for a medium. So a 2-stop almost certainly on the cards here. This could really set up an interesting race. If a couple of these medium drivers go 1-stop or even a 2-stop, we've got a real mix of strategies, and they might all culminate at the end of the race. But look at the rear slide there from Rabin, really kicking the rear end out, but he's out in front of D. Boya, and in a bit of clear air at the moment. 4 seconds to try and drive into, and I think he'll be pleased about how that's worked out for him.
Absolutely, considering the likes of Rapid Kitch here, he's currently getting swamped, isn't he? Eric's got past, Basil's got past, and he's, kind of find himself in a little bit of no man's land. So you would think that the undercut would work for Rabin, hands down here, but it just depends how long Rapid Kitch is looking to try and stay out on these soft tyres, and he does dive it back into the pits in a response, but I can imagine Rabin's pulled quite a decent gap, despite even having that slide heading down to the hairpin at turn 5. Surely, he's going to come out ahead, given how fast that fresh set of medium tyres is going to be in comparison to the sliding 9-lap-old soft tyres.
Yeah, you'd almost certainly think he's going to come out in front, but let's see. I think he's still in his pit box, just emerging now, so Rabin almost certainly going to fly. Look at how much he's going to gap the Haas of Kitch here. It's going to be quite large. Kitch might not even come out ahead of D. Boya if he's not careful. Oh, I think he's just about got it down into turn 1, but it is not by much at all. Very lucky just to get out in front, and 5 seconds is that gap. I mean, that has widened incredibly over that 1 lap that we saw for the outlap of Rabin. But it is true that Kitch did get overtaken by Eric and Basil on that lap, as we see Finbot retiring in the pit lane. But now it's given the guys at the front something to think about. Do they try and do a 2-stop here, maybe a medium soft at the end of the race? Or do they stick it out for a hard back the 1-stop and just try and hold on to the positions they've got?
I mean, they could even try and hold it onto the mediums and try and make a 1-stop to the softs work. Yes, it's a long way away, but you got to consider if they're comfortable with this pace they're running at, and if they're working together, like I suspect they will be from now on, given that they're going to be slightly under more pressure considering some of the front runners they were fighting with have already made a pit stop and could potentially be looking to run it to the end of a race. End of the day, these drivers don't know what the other drivers are thinking. They don't know how quick exactly the likes of Rabin, the likes of Rapid Kitch are going. They don't know whether they're trying to conservatise, trying to nurture it into a 1-stop, or whether, as you mentioned, pushing it towards a 2-stop, which both of them could potentially be very much viable, as we see Rabin there getting the overtake using the DRS to its full effect down the main straight with a little help of slipstream, and I'm sure a little bit of battery deployment, find himself flying past Devil even before the braking zone.
Yeah, very nicely done here from Rabin, and he's got another 2 seconds of clean air to try and... Oh, was that his Devil? Hello.
Cheeky devil.
Maybe just wanted to say hi to us there, yeah. On the mid corner at turn 4, and here comes, that's going to be Rapid. Kitch very keen to get through if he can, just to clear the Ferrari, and Devil, he's not going to fight that one too hard. Very respectfully done there. I think
Sensible.
he knows that Kitch... Yeah, Kitch isn't his race at the moment. I think it's very smart just to let him through, and also just very sportsman, just to let him through, really.
It's sensible. He knows his tyres aren't in the best shape after that half spin. And it's polite as well, knowing what his race is, knowing that he can just sit behind, he can try and lurk for a little bit of DRS as well, which could potentially, give him that 1 or 2 temp difference he needs before heading into the pits. But we see, once again, the front 2 staying out, not pitting. They're looking to go a little bit longer. Rapid Connor and F1 Nerd here. Are they going to start implementing this strategy that we've seen Scornsy and Matt Sim Racer do, where they use the DRS and they just swap peacefully, trading positions, making sure they're catching up at a sensible rate of knots to the cars in front, trying to collapse it all, as we see Rabin once again dashing past MZ Plays down that main straight. It's a potent overtaking opportunity.
Yeah, and I just mentioned less than a lap ago, Rabin had 2.5 seconds of clean air. And he's basically gained 3 on MZ Plays in a single lap. Tintoretto through on Boya, who is still on those hard compound of tyres. And Banana Crew Steamer still on the softs there. Really sticking it out at the moment. Longer than anybody else on the softs for the time being. Currently down in P14. But the pace that Rabin has currently got on those mediums is quite impressive. And he is going to be starting to really eat time into Nerd and Rapid Connor if he doesn't slide the car, losing a couple of tenths as he rises over the crest there. But Rapid Connor as well, him and Nerd working together with the DRS, Gorenzi and that Sim Racer as well. So it seems that these, duos of drivers that we're seeing form at the moment know that they need to work together to try and, keep themselves relevant in this race.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a feature we're going to see later on in the calendar, as we mentioned, as we see... is that Rapid Connor who's just took a very wide line there? Yeah, he's more than willing to come back on the circuit, but crucial point is, who's going to be able to get the DRS there? It does look like Rapid Connor, so Rapid Connor's just going to fly past once again. And now perhaps it might be worth starting to contemplate that P3 and P4 might need to start working together as well to make sure they're not losing touch with the likes of Scorenzi and Matt Sim Racer, and also giving themselves a little pocket, a little window to the likes of Rapid Connor. Yes, it's 10 seconds now, but we've already seen how a safety car can dramatically affect a race. We saw the VSC also give a great opportunity to a couple drivers to make an early pit stop, to get a 2-stop, to work safely, and get them into a good position. So there's a lot which could go on during this race, so it's always best just to try and maximise the amount of time you're able to pull to the cars behind and close up to the cars in front. It sounds a very Will Buxton comment, drive quick, but at the end of the day, it's something they're going to have to do in order to find themselves in the best possible position.
Yeah, and it's very true to say that, because of course you just got to be wary about where everybody is, where your competitors are, when they're on the different strategy, and where they are in your pit window, really. And I mean, talking of pit window, we're probably looking at maybe 2 laps time that we see these top 4 come into the pit lane, lap 15, maybe go 18 on a hard tyre, because they don't seem to be doing a 2-stop here, so they do look like they're going to the hard, as that Sim Racer and Scorenzi get close into turn 1, as well as Eric and Basil doing the same. F1 dropping a little bit further back from Rapid Connor here, who looks to have the edge of pace as they're on their way through towards the half-distance mark. But you can see Rabin lurking in the background, getting ever bigger in the wing mirrors, and he'll be really trying to get through on Connor and Nerd before they make their pit stops here. But on the flip side, actually, he might be hoping that Connor and Nerd pit maybe this lap just so that they get out of the way and he doesn't have to fight them.
Yeah, I mean, perfect scenario for him. He crosses the DRS detection point, he's able to pick up the DRS, and both of them dive it into the pits. That's what I would be hoping for, personally, but again, drivers work differently, each and every single one of these. Some drivers might like having a car in front to follow, gives them a little bit of pace management, gives them an opportunity to kind of visualise where they could potentially be losing out. It might push them, might encourage them to drive that a little bit quicker without having to force themselves to overdrive the car. There's a lot of different techniques drivers use in order to get themselves in the best opportunity, and the best window to try and make the most out of the opportunities they can find themselves with. But we see Rabin now closing up to almost within DRS, as we see F1 Nerd almost falling out of DRS, but thankfully he was able to get the traction down beautifully to help him close up that gap. But you see Rapid Connor once again taking a very, very wide line, heading through turn 14 there. Just trying to open it up a little bit more, maybe trying to cause a little bit of dirty air as well. But they're going to stay out. Rabin's going to have to do this one the hard way.
He is. I don't think he's going to be terribly pleased about that. I mean, Nerd and Rapid Connor likely to pit in the next couple of laps as MZ Plays does dive in his Aston Martin, but Rabin, it's going to be difficult. I think he's definitely got the pace. He's gaining near enough 2 seconds a lap still on these two drivers, and he has a very good edge on these tyres. Maybe if he gets a good enough exit here, could try and send a move on Nerd as they run down in towards turn 5, but he may just be a little bit too far back. Looking for it though, sending the car late, but not quite late enough and not quite committed enough to make it stick. And he's going to have to find somewhere else to make this move work, which may be difficult around this track before we get to turn 1, especially as he's half a second back. And with Nerd maybe picking up some DRS as well, it's looking tricky. But that pit window for the guys in the mediums in the top 6, it's going to open soon. Who can get the undercut?
Oh, it's going to be a tough one, isn't it? It's going to be certainly a delicate one to balance as well. Thankfully, we don't have any teammates within the top 6, so there won't be any need to stretch another car to go a little bit longer to avoid a double stack. So we should be clear on that front for these guys to keep racing to the heart's content. No mind games, no trickery, no backing the pack up. But something I do want to point out as well is look at Rapid Kitch. He's caught by a second this lap purely because Rabin's been stuck behind F1 Nerd and Rapid Connor in a bit of traffic here. That gap's closing at a rapid rate of knots.
Yeah, we'll have to see where Rapid Kitch comes out in terms of these front guys when they pit. Rabin through on one of these two drivers. F1 Nerd was first on the hit list and Rapid Connor's second on it. And I think he's going to be eyeing up a move down into turn 5 with a little bit of DRS and ERS use as they run their way towards the hairpin. Is he going to be able to send it? That red light flashing at the back of Rapid Connor means he's not got enough ERS as Rabin maybe trying to scare Rapid Connor off the racing line, but not to no avail, really, because the McLaren very effectively takes the racing line, and Rabin going to have to find somewhere else to make this move again, maybe having to wait down towards turn 1, but he will pick up some DRS, which will help him no end on that run. But I mean, the gaps have widened, haven't they, at the front? Rapid Connor, 11.5 seconds behind Basil, and then, of course, Basil is, you're looking at a good near enough 4.5 seconds behind Scarenzi. So, I mean, Rabin isn't going to have too much of an advantage, I think, when Scarenzi and that's in racer pit.
No, certainly not. But the two front runners staying out once again, swapping positions. I feel like this might be a common theme, you know, throughout the rest of this grid. I feel like a lot of them are just going to want to work together. Wait until that final lap. Wait until that opportunity. Because at the minute they're cooking, but right now it's raw. They will be cooking. They'll be cooking something beautiful. It'll be delicacy. It'll be fantastic. Currently, at the minute, the only driver who's got a finished meal right now on his plate to serve is Rabin. But meals get eaten. How quickly are these tyres going to get eaten as well? That's something I want to pay close attention to throughout Rabin for the rest of this race. Because those mediums will not last until the end of the race. I can almost guarantee it. And if they do, by all means, it'll be a miracle. But how much are these drivers willing to cook in this scenario, using each other for DRS and not diving into a fresh set of tyres? Because they can very easily overcook the strategy and find themselves falling short of the likes of Rabin, who's gone for something slightly different, who could potentially find himself in a world of enjoyment, let's say, if he was able to put on a fresh set of soft tyres at the end of this stint.
And yeah, I think it's true, because even if he does try and finish this race on the mediums, he is going to be swallowed whole in the closing laps by pretty much anybody on fresh tyres. That sim race from Scarenzi, they are staying out now more than half the race. Maybe they are trying a medium-soft strategy here. I was surprised if they were going to go for it, as Basil, I think, gets through an Eric down towards turn 1. But maybe that is what the plan is going to be for these guys. Nerd comes into the pit lane. What did you see, Josh?
I think Eric and Basil are actually fighting. I thought they was working together, but apparently Eric wasn't too much a fan of that and decided to hold it wide around turn 2, turn 3. No, they're probably fighting, aren't they?
Maybe this is a pit lap, possibly. I mean, I'd say at this point you're going for a soft, because you've gone more than half the race on the medium. What's the point of going to a hard? But having said that, Nerd's gone to a hard. But yeah, they're fighting here. I thought they were working together, and they're just losing a bit of time to the top 2.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned going to a hard might feel like a waste now. They've kind of found themselves in a no man's land. We saw the soft tyres work relatively well for about 10 laps, maybe 12 at a push. That'll take you to lap 30. You've got another 3 laps to do on that. Would the amount of fuel they would have been burning off during the last 18 laps be enough to equate to 3 laps of extra tyre performance? I don't necessarily think so. But something which won't equate at all is that 3-second time penalty for Rabin. That could potentially ruin his race here if he's having to dive it back into the pits to put a new set of tyres on and wait a whole 3 seconds before coming back out the pits and really trying to, you know, challenge the cars around him. Because realistically, he could be in the same sort of window that the Williams cars are at if he does decide to dive it into the pits with that penalty. And I say if because these medium tyres so far, 18 laps, they're still not looking terrible.
No, they're not looking terrible, but I think especially if these guys come out on fresh softs, Rabin is going to be so slow in comparison on what will be, I mean, by the end of the race. We're looking at 25, I should say, 25 lap old tyres. She's completed 18 laps, which reads 10. So yeah, 15 more laps, 25 lap old medium tyres. They are going to be absolutely dead, if not punctured. So going to be something we're going to have to watch, but I'm sure Rabin's going to come into the pit lane once more as well. But when do these guys box? I mean, the soft tyres we've seen, they haven't really worked well after about 8 laps. So they don't really want to make them go too long, but these medium tyres are also going to start dying themselves. So it's just that balance of when do you think you can get the best out of the soft tyre without really losing some time sliding at the end of the race. Through the final corner, they come on lap 19, and the top two both think it's time. That's Sim Racer much later into the pit lane than Scarenzi, and Eric and Basil follow, I presume all to a soft tyre, and they're all in a uniform strategy.
Yes, it's going to be certainly very interesting to see which drivers. We've got one pair of softs there for that Sim Racer. Let's have a little check, see what the rest of the cars are going on. It looks like it's majority soft here. Braver than me.
Yeah, they're all going to go on to softs all the way to the end of this race. But look at Rapid Kitch. How many can he jump here? That Sim Racer is a long way ahead of Scarenzi, and I don't quite know why is Rapid Kitch up the inside. That Sim Racer, of course, it's tight through turn 1 on the pit exit, and Rapid Kitch did a little bit of an up and under, but look at the traction there on that fresh, soft compound of tyre for Rapid Kitch. And will he let Scarenzi through cheaply? I think he probably will, working together as a team, but that Sim Racer, 8 seconds or 9 seconds back on Rabin. How quickly can he make that 0?
It's okay. Rapid Kitch lifted there to let Scarenzi back past. Right, very interesting there, but you're going to have to consider Rapid Connor could also play a key factor in this as well. He's a second back from Rabin. He's used Rabin for a little bit of DRS. You would expect him to pit this lap to go onto a set of soft tyres. He could very well be in this same sort of picture, maybe hanging on to the back of the likes of F1 Nerd, maybe find himself in that little period of no man's land as well. Between P8 and P7. There's still a lot to be gained here, but you've got to imagine that Sim Racer, Scarenzi, they're licking their lips at this opportunity. They've got a car on dying medium tyres ahead of them. That's surely, you know, a brilliant opportunity for them to comfortably take a position and comfortably gain and not have to push for tyres. They can nurse them slightly to kind of protect themselves from P6, or should I say P5 and P6 of Eric and Basil, because they might have to start looking backwards in a matter of time. It'll just depend on how easily Rapid Kitch will necessarily want to let past Eric and Basil, or is he going to be a rear gunner for Scarenzi for the remainder of this race?
6.5 seconds was the gap between Rabin and that Sim Racer at turn 1 this lap. We're just going to have to see how close it gets by the end of this lap. It's already come down by a second in about half of the lap, as we see Eric here getting through on Rapid Kitch up towards 7 and 8, sweeping through, and Basil will be the next one in the line to try and make his way up on the Haas drive as well. Look at the traction that he has coming off of turn 8 through turn 9. He sweeps through up into P5, and Basil trying to keep tabs with Eric, doesn't want to see him get too far up the road, as they are really fighting over possibly P3 in this race if they can catch Rabin, which it looks like they very well might be able to do. As they come through turn 14, that Sim Racer has taken 2.5 seconds, maybe even 3 by the time they get to turn 1, out of Rabin, who pits. So he is coming in, he is going to go to a soft, but he's going to come out around the likes of Rapid Connor here.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. I mean, he's done his best to try and adapt to two-stop here, but you've got to think now, the ball is certainly in the hands of the likes of that Sim Racer, Scarenzi, Eric, Basil to try and fight for this win. And so far, they're pretty split. Someone's got to make that sacrifice, maybe dip back a little bit, offer DRS to one of them, and try and work together to close up. But again, we've seen Eric and Basil not have the best working relationship heading down into turn 1, to say the very least. More than happy to fight it out also heading into turn 5. Perhaps it might need to be either Scorenzi dumps a little bit of battery to try and get back within the DRS, or perhaps he might have to consider backing up to try and help and work with Eric.
Yeah, we'll have to see this and how it all pans out. But that sim racer looks relatively comfortable at the moment. Rabin is out behind, just behind Rapid Connor and ahead of F1 there. But these two should be able to gap the man on the hard tyre pretty easily, you'd expect. But let's see. Rabin, he's going to look to get through on Rapid Connor quickly, try and then gap the McLaren driver. But he's got 11 seconds up to Rapid Kitch, albeit on aging medium tyres himself. So he almost will certainly catch by the end of the race. But that might be his ceiling, because I can't really see him gaining that much on drivers in front who are on pretty much exactly the same tyre.
I feel like it'll definitely come down to when those soft tyres decide to fall off a cliff. When are they going to be the most vulnerable? Because if it's going to be on lap 30, like we predicted, you could potentially be looking at Rabin here absolutely nailing the strategy, keeping those soft tyres alive and in a good working state all the way until lap 32, maybe even 33, right until the very end. It'll certainly come down to the wire. Let's just say I wouldn't want to put any bets down for who's going to win this race, because I feel like anything could happen. Basil might even be able to pull something out of the bag, close up that 4-second gap and really decide to go flying to get some moves done.
Basil is keeping close to Eric here, isn't he? I mean, these guys really just fighting out to the end. Maybe it could be a case of whoever's got the DRS on the last lap might have an advantage. Is that Oliver James? I think it is. Oliver James and AJ Mackey have come together down at the exit of turn 10. They are a lap down, so should be ghosting for the leaders that are coming through. That's Racer now lapping the two at the back of the field. And Rapid Mini getting himself up into P15. He's not had an enjoyable evening and might find himself a lap down very shortly. But I think he'll be the last driver to be lapped in this race. Look at how close Basil is, though, to the back of Eric as they run through turn 14. DRS might put him up into P3 here.
Yep, surely this is going to be his opportunity now. He's within 3 temps, he's closing, he's got a better exit. You open up the DRS. I wouldn't even deploy battery, I'll just get the move done, move to the inside, nice and early heading into turn 1. But will be a little bit of a defence, but nothing Eric can really put up there to stop Basil from getting past now. He's just got to make sure he doesn't overcook it heading into turn 3. He's got to be slightly earlier on the brakes, knowing that he's carrying that little bit more speed from the slipstream, from the battery, from the DRS, and he does so beautifully, climbing himself up into P3. Now it'll be a job of getting his head down and trying not to worry about Eric behind, who is certainly trying to make a problem of this race as he puts it back up the inside at turn 5. Basil, once again, stuck back down into P4. These two aren't planning on working together. They're fighting for P3.
And this could be a battle I think we're going to be following all the way to the end of this race. I mean, 9.5 laps to go for these guys. And Eric and Basil, this is the battle for the final step on the podium. Both of them really would love to take home a podium early on in the season still. Of course, in the first half, after Austria round 5, we've got a couple of weeks break before we come back for Abu Dhabi. So you really want to be able to go into that break with a nice position in the championship, something to build on, and both of these drivers are going to be thinking about exactly that, getting the points on the board and trying to push forward their championship challenges. But we've got a battle for the lead as well. Scorenzi is back inside that time window, or that 1 second window I should say, of that sim racer to get the DRS towards turn 1. And I mean, it's fair to say that I think Adrian Mackie is very much benefiting from being in the DRS here, but he may be putting off that sim racer a little bit coming through the opening sector.
I think it goes both ways, you know, because I feel like Scorenzi might have picked up DRS from one of the back markers to help him catch up to that sim racer during the last lap. So this lap, he's within the DRS range.
He is, and there goes AJ Mackie, just letting Scorenzi through. I don't know why he's done that then, because he was right inside that sim racer all sector 1 long, but either way, he's let him through now. Basil almost pushing Eric through turn 7 into turn 8, but a very good exit there from the AlphaTauri driver, and he will get out of the corner very nicely up towards turn 10. But yeah, battle for first and battle for third brewing, and with just about 8 laps to go, I am absolutely here for it.
100%, and you've got to consider with all this battling that these drivers are doing for third place, perhaps that window for Rabin to jump up into P4, P3 doesn't look impossible now. I say that tediously because I'm not too sure, because he did just set the fastest lap of the race, but we'll have the McLaren bearer of Oliver James diving into the pit lane, but I'm surprised that Scornsy hasn't deployed any battery to try and get a move done. Yellow flag there down the main straight, so Basil wasn't able to make the move. This could be critical. He's having to stay behind Eric, and we know Eric likes to use that DRS battery combo down into turn 5 to retake the lead. Is he going to use it to slowly start trying to pull away and build a little bit of a window to Basil? Certainly looks that way, but of course he won't have that DRS to aid him to try and escape that little bit more. Basil, once again, just finding himself stuck now. He's got to find a way to be able to get past Eric and make it stick before turn 5. Very similar to what Screnzy's going to be looking to do on that Sim Racer. As once again, we've got a lapped car, traffic in front, give that Sim Racer a little bit of DRS if he's able to overtake it time perfectly. But no, the AlphaTauri teammate of Rapid Mini moving out the way. That Sim Racer will not have DRS heading down to turn 1. Surely this is Screnzy's chance.
Yeah, you would say it's Scorenzy's chance, but you'd also say that if that Sim Racer has a little bit more pace that we may have seen at the first part of this stint, that if he's able to sit in the DRS, he might have a chance coming on to the closing laps here. So it goes both ways, I think it's fair to say. But up towards turn 1, here comes Scorenzy. On the back of that Sim Racer, using that DRS, he's getting closer, 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 all the way down. He's actually using that DRS, he turned it off, maybe not going for the move into the opening corner. But as you could briefly see there, ERS not at a premium, at a premium for him. He's not got too much left. As we see Rabin get through on Rapid Kitchen. Now remember, that was an 11-second gap, and he has closed that down very, very quickly, up into P5. He's actually only 6.5 seconds off the back of Basil and Eric, but that time penalty is a bit like a handcuff on him.
Yes, absolutely. He might be able to climb himself up into P4, maybe even a P3, but that time penalty is going to come down like a guillotine at the end of the day, isn't it? It's going to put him back a lot further than he would like. I'm sure he's going to approach the stewards, try and ask for something to be sorted about it. But end of the day, quite often happens is in-game rules stick, and they'll always apply. Obviously, game can have features like we've seen before, but quite often when it comes to 3-second time penalties for corner cutting, they're normally more than often right.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how this pans out. I mean, 6 laps to go. Rabin is catching quite significantly. If Eric and Basil really do start to fight hard, we might see him try and pop his nose into the battle for P3 with that penalty. Of course, Eric and Basil might pick up their own penalties themselves. You can never rule anything out. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Of course, as they cross the line, we have 6 laps to go here in this race. 27 gone, 6 to go. Eric doing a little bit of defending here. Basil trying to make this move with the DRS gaining all the way down towards turn 1. I thought he was going to go for it into the opening corner for an inside line, but in the end just backs out. Thinks better of it. You could briefly see that red light flashing on the back of Eric as well. Basil's going to be thinking about that and conserving his ERS for a late race charge.
Yeah, you can see he's got roughly about 50% on his steering wheel. He knows the position he's in. He knows he's just got to wait a couple more laps, but will it be a couple more laps too late? How quickly is Rabin going to be able to catch up to these lot? How much has he pushed his tyres? Has he left anything in the tank for him? There's a lot of unanswered questions, but they'll be answered in the next 5 laps of this race. And one of them is, how much is that sim racer going to want to defend from Scorenzy throughout this period of a race? Because surely, if you're Scorenzy, you're not necessarily looking to try and get an overtake. You're looking to try and get it heading onto lap 33 down that main straight. Or maybe even wait until turn 5 to really try and get a good bite out of the cherry for this race win. You've got to start thinking, perhaps there might be a little bit of DRS chicken to be played. There's 8.6 seconds back, so they do have the luxury to be able to play a little quick game of DRS chicken.
Yeah, they have that buffer, don't they, to go for it. But I think what Scorenzy's doing here, unless he proves me wrong down to someone, no. What I think he's doing is he knows he has got the pace and he has got the ability to win this race by making a move into turn 1, but he doesn't want to give that sim racer that opportunity. So I think he may be waiting for the last lap, very possibly, to make a go for the lead here down at turn 1, because he knows he can do it. You can see him turning off the ERS and backing off before the corner actually arrives. So he knows he physically can do it with the pace, but he doesn't want to give that sim racer the opportunity to do it back to him onto the final lap. So I think he's just sitting and waiting, biding his time, twiddling his thumbs, and waiting for the perfect opportunity to make this move stick. I think it's very similar as well with Eric and Basil for P3 and P4, because in this scenario, I think you'd really rather be the person in second in this train.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want to be the first one to cross the line, but of course, we've seen so many times before, think back to Imola as well, how potent the DRS was there. Portimao is no different. The DRS, Slipstream, ERS combination, all three of them, they almost make a holy trinity. You're able to absolutely fly by people, but again, it comes to that question of, is that run down in turn 5 long enough? Would it necessarily be worth saving that battery if you're the leading car and dumping it down heading into turn 5? Is that going to be a good opportunity? Would that be a potential tactic they might want to use? Or is it a tactic they might have to use to try and have some sort of defense? Because you can already see there the AlphaTauri unlapping itself of Rapid Mini. Just going to show how powerful that Slipstream DRS combination is. And I'm sure Rapid Mini doesn't mind deploying a little bit of ERS to try and build himself a little bit of a bigger buffer to AJ Mackey, considering he does have that time penalty. But again, with these cars out in front, it gives that sim racer an opportunity to have a little bit of DRS.
Yeah, and I don't think Scorenzi is going to be entirely pleased to see that the lap car is, you would say, somewhat interfering in the race at the moment. But with these soft tyres really going off, the guys on the mediums, you're looking at Rapid Mini flying up the road, and AJ Mackey are really starting to show that they actually have quite a lot of pace themselves. And I think actually that sim racer has been gapped by at least a second here, so I don't think he'll be picking up any DRS himself down towards turn 1, but it will be quite a close run thing, I reckon. But 3 laps to go then as they round the final couple of corners. Basil hoping to brush off Eric.
You just wanted to do a Darragh, you just wanted to do a Basil brush pun, didn't you?
I'm going to be honest, I've been lining it up for the last 10 laps. I've been waiting. I've been waiting to say it. But we'll have to see. Yeah, that's in racing. No DRS for the Mercedes driver. DRS for Scorenzi, closing again. But he's got to be careful here, because if he was waiting, he's got to make sure he's got a chance. Eric back through, though. These two aren't playing the game that Scorenzi is playing. They're swapping positions every lap.
Absolutely. At this point, I'm starting to think Eric's behaving a little bit badly. Instead of Bear behaving badly, I did my best. It doesn't quite work, but you never know. At the end of the day, the Bear's name might have been Eric, because at the minute, Eric looks like he's barely keeping control of this P3 position. Basil certainly has started to sweep things along a little bit, hasn't he? He's started to up the pace. He's started to deploy a little bit more battery. He's started to get that opportunity, and perhaps a reason for that could be because he might have seen Rabin catching them, but surely 3.7 seconds back with 2 laps to go might not be the best opportunity to see the Alpine there just moving out the way of Banana, ensuring it doesn't necessarily interfere. But once again, that Sim Racer and Scorenzi, it's close up here, and Rapid Mini could potentially offer a little bit of DRS here. It could cost Scorenzi this race win.
Very well could. I don't think he'll be terribly pleased. The back markers, I mean, even if they're not getting involved, they are just they're just there. They're in the back of your mind as you run through. Blue flags, of course, flying all the way through. That's Sim Racer not having any DRS, but Scorenzi, he's not close enough to make his DRS work down in towards turn 1 as we get onto the penultimate lap here. Behind, though, Basil, he's going to go for the move on Eric. No, he isn't. He's trying the game. He's trying to wait for the last lap and make that move for the podium right at the end of the race. But time is really ticking down here. Rabin is close to 3 seconds back as well, but he's just left it a little bit too late.
Yes, I feel like this battle for turn 3 can get heated very, very quickly, especially if Eric decides to play a little bit of DRS chicken. End of the day, it's part of racing, isn't it? We've seen great techniques used by real drivers. We've seen it in Formula 1 esports. We've seen it in the likes of WOR, PSGL. We've seen it here, there, and everywhere, and it wouldn't surprise me if PRL's going to add a little bit of DRS chicken to the games list of what they host here on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. Personally, I'm a fan of it. I'm here for it. I say we bring DRS chicken in every week, because right now Scorenzi looks like he's got the pace to really try and pressure that Sim Racer, but that Sim Racer, once again, looks like he's closed up slightly to Rapid Mini. You can see the ghost car in front moves out the way before the DRS zone. But there we go, the DRS chicken's been played. Scorenzi's been forced around the outside. That Sim Racer now will have a DRS, surely.
I think he's got the DRS,
Yes.
but it's very nice for Rapid Mini to get out of the way. But look at that sim race. He's trying to use it down towards turn 1. He's got the inside line. They're going to be side by side through the apex of the corner. That's it. Scarenzi, sorry, going wide and off of the track, but I think keeping the position. But look at the Mercedes just about on the inside as they run through turn 3. The outside line it will become for turn 4, but he's going to have another dose of DRS. Is he? Yes, he will. Down towards turn 5 at the hairpin. Can he make this work? He's going to send the car. He has to the inside. It's late. It's brave. There's contact, but he's up into the lead of the race. Scarenzi's still fighting it here, but that sim racer leaving it very, very late. The DRS chicken just working out, and he might just about take the win in this race.
Might very well indeed, but Scarenzi is still all over the back of him. We've got to keep an eye out for that because there is an opportunity for Scarenzi to make an unprecedented overtake heading from his middle sector, the likes of turn 10, turn 12, turn 13. There's an opportunity to put your car up the inside and make it the unexpected overtake, but he's looking a little bit too far back at this moment in time, isn't he? I'm sure he'll be raging in his cockpit. He's just got absolutely played by that sim racer with the DRS chicken, and then of course a little rub in his racing to get past in turn 5. Once again, I'm sure the stewards will have a look at that, but that sim racer lining up here, surely going to be trying to take the shortest route to the line possible, because Scarenzi's still going to get a little bit of slipstream here, but it won't be enough. Surely not. That sim racer will cross the line and win the Portimao Grand Prix here in PRL.
What a race that was as well. Really exciting towards the end. And look at that, Eric just about holding off Basil by, you could say, brushing off Basil, by a 10th and a half for P3. I'm very sorry for saying that one again. But Rabin, P5, I mean, he tried that two-stop strategy, not working in the end for him, but it was a valiant effort as Rapid Connor crossed the line in 6th. Rapid Kitch on those absolutely dead medium tyres comes home in P7, and then you got to look back to the likes of Nerd and MZ where the gaps are quite large. Nerd, got a feel for him, raced on his own for the majority of that race. I mean, 18 seconds or 15 behind Rapid Kitch, 12 ahead of MZ plays. Got to feel for him slightly because he didn't have too much to do, but that's him racer, Scarenzi and Eric. What a race from them. Basil, you've got to feel for him, just missing out on the podium, but those four really were the class of the field.
Yeah, I mean, the separate battles they had as well, it's a what if. What if they worked together and didn't want to fight each other as hard for that P3? Could they have caught up? Could they have forced him to not play DRS chicken? A lot of factors go into it, but Darragh, who's your driver of the day for today?
Oh, I don't know. That is a very good question. I'm going to be honest. I can't remember where everybody started, so I'm going to very sneakily wait until we see where people started. The game's given it to Rabin. I think that's because he made lots of overtakes on track. But we will see what the starting positions were for some of these guys.
I can tell you mine. For me, Rapid Kitch, how he kept those mediums from puncturing, I will never know. Regardless of where he started, regardless of where he finished, he kept those mediums alive. He did exactly what he needed to do to make his strategy work. It wasn't the optimal one, but he did exactly what was needed of him to make that work. If you put him on the right strategy there, he's walking away with this one, I think. Because the level of patience he's shown on that tyre, otherworldly.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. He did show some great pace. And to keep those tyres alive really, really does show. Very, very good tyre management, but yeah, look at that in the end. That sim racer winning the race. I think I might have to give it. To Eric, because that battle with Basil all the way through the second stint was monumental, and he just about came out on top. They really raced very well, and if Basil came third, I would have given it to him as well. Given it to him instead of Eric, but. Yeah, I think those two had a very, very good battle, very clean, very respectful, and yeah, Eric comes out on top in that one. But it is that sim racer who wins from Scarenzi and Eric, second and third. Basil, Rabin, and Rapid Connor in the top 6 with Kitch finishing in 7th. 8th for F1 Nerd, 9th for the South African driver MZ Plays, and running out the top 10 is Tintoretto for the Williams team. Then it's Deboya, who started the race on that hard tyre, but didn't really work out for him in the end. He was P11 with Devil and Crew Steamers in 12th and 13th. Mackie Mini and Banana were a lap down with Oliver James and Finbop, sadly not seeing the checkered flag. But it was an interesting race, Josh, and yeah. I'm quite excited to try and hear the opinions of some of the podium guys, because I think we might have a couple of interviews to give.
Absolutely, certainly. Let's try and get those interviews sorted. But meantime, Darragh, how do you feel like it's going to affect the championship standings? Because there was a lot of big gainers in that race, and also a few who may have ended up miscalculated a couple strategies here and there, which are going to have to pay the ultimate price for it and end up falling back down the championship.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you're looking at Eric, of course, picking up a third in qualifying, and then of course third in the race. That's 21 points, I do believe. So he should tie himself with Paco for P5 here. But of course, with the top three, that Sim Racer steals a bit of a march over Scorenzi, who steals a bit of a march over Rabin. So they split out a little bit, but it's still a very, very tight championship battle that we've got. And we're gonna have to watch it all the way through, particularly next week when we head to Zandvoort. But
yes,
Josh,
we got someone. We've got Scorenzi
Oh,
in
yeah, I
the
was
chat.
about to say, yeah.
Are we gonna hop over?
Let's hop over then.
Lovely. Oh, right, there we go. Hello, Scorenzi?
Yes, hello.
Hello. Firstly, how'd you find that race, mate?
Ah, man, it was fun. It was fun, I will say that. Not a very like hectic battling type of race, but more of just kind of keep it cool and just that slow build up to the very, very end, you know, but yeah, it was a fun race. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, what would you say would be the defining factor throughout your first stint? Because we've seen a lot of close battles throughout that first stint, up and down the grid. But what would you say would be the moment which you was able to take away from it most? Maybe it might be something you might have learnt from the other drivers. But yeah, how'd you find it?
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult to keep pace, especially towards the end of that first stint. But just kind of trying to manage my tires at the very beginning, the opening laps, trying to since I was going to be extending the mediums pretty far, because they were pretty worn by the end of the first stint. So from there, it was just kind of like babying the tires in the beginning and then pushing a little bit more in the middle of the first stint. And yeah, and I mean, ERS management was crucial there as well, to be able to just kind of maintain a gap to everybody else and just kind of not get caught up in no crazy battles, just DRS passing myself, or not myself, but like the other driver
Hello.
that's with me and whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah, that's Sim Racer. That was a great race, Grande. That was a great race. GG, man.
Thank you very
GG.
much.
Sorry if I gave you a tiny little love tap, which I feel so sorry about. But apart from that, it was a great race.
Let's move on from Scorenzi. Yeah, again, a brilliant race, mate. Fantastic job. The battle that both of you had. Talk us about the DRS chicken game. I mean, that was ridiculous, no?
It was. What I noticed for the last 8 laps, what I noticed was Scorenzi was purposely staying behind me so he can recharge, lap in, lap out, lap in, lap out. So I thought, if I slow down a bit, that lapped car is going to go in front of me, and all I need to do is just trail him, lap in, lap out, lap in, lap out. And then as we're coming up towards the DRS detection line, towards the final corner, the lap car decides to like slow down and pull to the side. So I slowed down a little bit, and Scorenzi decided to flat out go past me. So I was like, Jesus, let's go.
Yeah, no. You know, how much would you say that backmarker car helped with that little bit of DRS?
Oh, big time.
Big time.
Yeah, it got me from like 30% battery up to 80.
Yeah, I mean, Scorenzi, what's your opinion on that?
It was a bit annoying for sure. It was pretty annoying just because you know, it helped him out massively. But at the end of the day, I also got some help similar to that a little bit earlier in the second stint because I had gotten held up a little bit in the pits, waiting for a car to come in as I was about to leave my pit box. So that's when I lost a little bit of time, and Sim Racer was able to get that extra little bit of a gap, and I couldn't stay in the DRS. So then from there, like the gap kind of stayed around 1.6, 1.7, and I was like, oh man. And then I had to burn up my battery. But then I believe it was AJ that was caught up between us, and I was able to get DRS off of him and kind of pull me back in. So I guess, you know, I got some help. He got some help.
Perfectly, I think. We both drove perfectly, I think. I don't think that could have been better for us two. Like, it was clean. Yeah. We towed each other. We we weren't necessarily slowing each other down. Like I was quicker through the first half of the lap, you were quicker through the second half of the lap, and that was something I noticed quite quickly, which is the reason why I wanted that DRS off the lap car, because through sector 3 you were quicker. Those final 3 corners you were quicker than me. So I thought I needed that DRS to be able to pull me into that last lap, otherwise I'm done.
Yeah, no, it was a fun battle though. I enjoyed it.
Brilliant stuff.
Great
Both of you
race,
guys
yeah.
take about P1, P2 of the championship so far. It's looking very promising for your championship battle, and your hopes looking forwards. I mean, are you two thinking about that too much, or are you just taking it race by race at this point? We'll start with I'll tell you what. No, we'll start with you, Alex.
I think I'm just taking it race by race. We've got a good calendar. With the next round, I'm not particularly looking forward to. I'm okay at Netherlands, but I'm not a great fan of it. But I'm more looking forward to every single time I see a calendar with Jeddah on the page. I get excited. Jeddah is my golden boy, so I'm counting down the weekends for that to roll around. I'm just happy. That's one thing I forgot to mention. I'm just happy that my blooming wheel worked. For an hour and a half, I was trying to fix my wheel because it wasn't connecting to my Xbox. So an hour and a half, and as soon as we're like 2 minutes ready, like from starting the lobby and go into qualifying, it decides to reconnect and start working again.
Lovely. I mean, it's a good job.
Otherwise, that was Scorenzi's data through and through. Great race for him, great pace for him.
Yeah, moving on to you, Scorenzi. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much share a lot of the same stuff that Alex had, just said right now. Netherlands, not the biggest fan. Hit or miss track for me, to be honest with you. So we'll see. Hopefully when we race, it's a hit for me. But we'll see. As far as championship goes, I mean, it's still pretty early on. I'm not really thinking about the end goal right now. Just taking it race by race, trying to be consistent, bring consistently good points. Keep getting podiums, fight for wins, and just see how it kind of plays out from there. But it's not going to be easy, that's for sure. And again, massive congrats to Alex. He drove very, very well. It's a shame what happened to Eric. I have that DC earlier as well. I know he had some very solid pace. So, all in all, great race from everybody on the podium as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, all throughout. Eric, let's get your thoughts, mate. Unfortunate DC. It's one of the game's features. It's horrible to see. Do you think if you didn't have it, you'd be in potential for a win here?
Yeah, of course. I definitely thought I had the PS for it, as I was behind Scorenzi the whole, I'd say 4 or 5 laps. But since the DC happened, I went down to like P6 or P7, and I had to do all the work to catch up. And I'm very happy to come out with a podium at the end of the race.
Yes, absolutely. We saw your Titanic battle with Basil. Do you want to run us through, because from our perspective, watching it from an outside perspective, it didn't seem like you two were interested in working together at all to try and catch up to Scorenzi and Alex. You seemed like you really just wanted to get that overtake done and make it work.
No, since lap 25, I had to feel safe, so my game plan was just to stay ahead of Basil. And if he would overtake me, I would just overtake him back to the next nearest thing straight. So
okay.
I knew I wouldn't be able to catch up SimRacer or Scorenzi, as I had too low amount of fuel. So yeah.
It's unfortunate, Eric. It really is. But again, you made it here to the podium. What are your thoughts about next week, Zandvoort? Is it a track you particularly like? Is it a strong point or a weak point?
I'd say it's my strong point, actually. I'm actually excited for the Zandvoort. I actually really like that track since it came to the F1 games. I felt like I was really strong at that track.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been lovely getting an opportunity to talk with all of you. Congratulations on your podium, guys. And yeah, well done.
Thank you very much. Great racing from all.
Thank you. Oh, and there we are. It's back. It's back to just JGM and Darragh. feels empty in here now, Darragh.
It does, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, great to hear from the drivers there, just to get their thoughts. I mean, they all seem to enjoy their race, which is of course exactly what we want to hear. But we're going to do it all again tomorrow, aren't we? Of course,
Yes.
with Tier 2. Don't go anywhere at about 10 o'clock UK time tomorrow evening, because we've got Tier 2 going around Portimao for their third race of the season. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure Josh is looking forward to it as well. But make sure you join us then. We will be live, as I said, just about 10 o'clock UK time tomorrow evening. But we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. I hope you enjoy your day tomorrow, and you look forward to Tier 2, because we are looking forward to it as well. But enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you